From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. I am Nick Barris. It is Thursday, and I hope if you're watching, you'll sit back and enjoy the program. If you'd like, you can always pick up the phone. We'll get the phone number up there and give you a chance to join in the conversation. What we're going to talk today is what much of the state has been paying attention to, wherever it is that you may live, what our lawmakers are passing with regard to mask mandates and whether or not they can dictate to various municipalities, kind of taking control on certain things, on who can govern what and decide what can be done one way or the other. And I think a lot of this is directed toward the major cities in the state. Memphis, maybe Knoxville, but really Nashville is a target, I think, here in a lot of ways, for better or for worse. And I think discussions are being had right now on how to deal with it and what impact it may have in Music City. We're going to talk about that. We touched a little bit on it yesterday with District Attorney Glenn Funk. This morning, we're going to talk with Metro Council person Bob Mendes. Good morning to you, sir.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Nice to have you on. It was 2 or 3 days ago, right? It was November 1st that you sent the letter to the mayor because you see what's happening at the legislature, asking to have the city, really have Metro Legal and others take a hard look at what's being passed at the legislature and how it could have a bearing on how life is lived here in Metro. What was the letter all about, and what is your biggest concern here?
Well, the biggest concern is that the state legislature came back into special session, and in the course of 72 hours, ending with a midnight vote early Saturday morning, passed a whole boatload of legislation that limits Nashville's power. And so really the main point is to figure out exactly what they did in those 2 or 3 days and what the game plan is for going forward to deal with it.
A lot of what they were focusing on at this point is dealing with, vaccines. I think you did a great job in the letter you sent to the mayor, kind of spelling it out, initial review. And you're right, we got to really sift through this stuff. I think we all are. The media is too. Prohibition on Metro or the schools requiring employees to receive a vaccine. Prohibition on private businesses or schools to require proof of vaccine. A lot of it having to do with masks. Also questions about, like this one, and I brought this up with General Funk, the discretion and authority of duly elected Davidson County District Attorney is limited under new laws. It's kind of the way you perceive it. The law allows the replacement of a district attorney to be appointed from outside the county. And with regard to arguably the most powerful person in the city of Nashville is a district attorney. The most powerful person in any community really is, because they have the power to take away your freedom. Right. And what was your take when you saw that with regard to the district attorney and his ability to prosecute cases here?
Well, our district attorney has done a good job of making it clear that there's certain crimes that he won't prosecute. For example, the state passed an unconstitutional law regarding abortion. He said that he wouldn't enforce it criminally, and then it got overturned later on. There's some other laws that he said he won't enforce, and the state legislature doesn't like that and has set up a process now where the state attorney general could go ask the Tennessee Supreme Court for a replacement for those crimes. And that, I think, unfairly limits our DA's discretion in what to prosecute, what not to prosecute.
Do you feel in any way, as you sit here, a very involved member of this community and city here, that Nashville is the focus? I mean, what the legislature is passing is a statewide law and it applies everywhere.
Right.
But that Nashville, to some ways, is the focus of what they're doing here?
Well, it's certainly a focus of a lot of it. Like certainly the part about the district attorney, Nashville is the focus. All the state legislatures come live here 4, 5, 6 months a year. They don't apparently like how we handled our business with the pandemic. The school board election stuff seems targeted at Nashville. I know there's some effort from some business groups to get changes to how we do our school board, and so a lot of it does feel directly targeted at Nashville.
We have a legislature that I think is much, and it's a conservative and more Republican legislature, of course, hands off, let people govern themselves, and yet here they are maybe saying, no, we want to govern Nashville?
Well, it is easy. I think I'm the current leader in the council of preempted bills. So I think I've drafted more bills that have been preempted than anybody else in the council.
Wait, what do you mean preempted?
So preempted means we pass a law,
Yeah.
Like we passed a law to get more affordable housing. The state passed a law that overturned what we did. And I've got a couple that I've drafted, passed, majority of the council, mayor signed, and then the state overturned it. That's what preemption is. And so I get the dynamic that they're the big bad boys on the hill and they get to tell us what to do. But we can't stop trying to do our best for Nashville, and so we need to act what is in Nashville's best interest. And if they want to change the rules on us every couple of years, we'll have to figure it out from there. And that's really what this is about. Is they've gone and changed the rules, a whole boatload of rules in the middle of the night, and now we have to figure out what to do about it.
And as you say, big bad wolf, and the folks there at the legislature, but truly. What type of, big stick do they have to enforce this? I mean, I guess it can come down to money. They can say, if you don't do this, we're going to cut monies that come from the state to the city. But truly, if you just say, whatever, and just go about your business, and I guess that's part of what you're asking here, what do you worry about?
Well, in reality, every city, municipality, town in the state only exists if the state legislature says it exists. So they literally could pass a law that says the city of Nashville as a municipality doesn't exist anymore. And there's been a time over immigration-related legislation 4 or 5 years ago where I understand that certain legislators did call a now former mayor and say, we will destroy your ability to be a combined city-county government if you pass this. And so that fundamental right to have a combined city-county government that makes Nashville really sort of special in how it's able to govern itself is the big stick. And thankfully they're not always that great about writing clear laws, and so we have to find the gray areas or where they forgot to write it very well and figure out how we can still do the best for Nashville, understanding that there's been a consistent effort over the last 10-15 years to carve back our power to govern ourselves.
And ultimately, I understand these lawmakers who are seeing this, many of them who are involved with this are not from this district, obviously,
right.
And their constituents may like this, but I mean, the city council, the district attorney and others, you're all elected, and you're doing the will of the people that live here, okay? Is what most of the time, or most of the people, you're doing that will, and it's all of a sudden you have these folks from lawmakers all across the state who don't live here imposing their will. I guess there are state laws that do that. Some of them are very good, but it seems like it's taking away an individual municipality's ability to govern itself.
With the yes, that is the direction that the state legislature has gone in recent years. We all know we've got polarized politics in America,
sure.
And supermajorities they run the risk that extreme positions get pushed, and with the state having supermajority going in one direction, there's primaries for all the state level positions next year, governor, all the state house people, and these preemptions, this beating up on Nashville seemingly is a little bit of a sport. Always happens in advance of the elections at the state level stuff. It's I think personally pandering a little bit to the far extreme base of one party. And listen, it is easy to get mad about it, but the more important thing is to understand what's been done and what discretion we have to do our best for the people we represent here in Nashville.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. In large measure, much of this is politically motivated. Politics, right?
I think so.
All right. Do you think how things are said or how the city responds, there's nuance here. I mean, would you prefer if maybe the DA wasn't so outspoken where he's kind of, it's like, well, we'll look at this. Instead, he's like, not going to do it. Yeah, in so many words, I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
I'm just curious with that regard, because some of that, and he's actually been mentioned a couple of times, and he is the district attorney, for arguably one of the most powerful ones in the state because he's here in Nashville. Just the way, are you okay with the fact that, yeah, he's pretty plain spoken about it?
I mean, he's speaking the truth, and there's not enough of that in the world these days. He said that he wasn't going to enforce the new abortion law that got promptly overturned by a federal judge. Like, I can't fault him for saying I'm not going to enforce an unconstitutional law. The marijuana possession, I mean, I understand from criminal defense lawyers that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation won't even do testing on a quarter ounce or less. So you can't, if you wanted to prosecute a quarter ounce or less, you couldn't get the TBI to test it because they're not interested in testing.
Yeah, and so my point is,
amount.
I think a lot of the DAs, I'm glad you brought that up, across the state maybe recognize that as well. And so they're just kind of, oh, here they come, and they don't say anything.
Right.
But we have a DA that has made it clear. Yeah, he didn't have to say anything. He could have just gone about his business and not prosecuted. And who knows if anyone except the people charged would have noticed.
Right.
But he says it.
Well, and I'm glad that he does say that, because the reality is there's a long history in Davidson County, and I think across the nation, of low-level marijuana possession charges happen to people of color in much greater proportion than to white folks, and so it's not just it's a use-only amount, but it's the fact that there's a history of those charges being used as part of racial racism, a system that has tended to charge black and brown people more for the same thing than white people. And the fact that he's brought that up and made it plain is part of an overall statement of trying to address racial unfairness in the criminal prosecution system.
Take a break on that note. When we come back, we can take some phone calls, 737-7587. Just what folks that maybe live in Nashville or live outside Nashville, if you have a question for the councilman. And when we do come back, your concerns about what happens if none of this is checked and where it goes from here. And then also we'll cut into, before the end of the show, what options might be there. And I know that's where you've asked for, hopefully, answers from the city and the mayor in the next 14 days. So we'll take a break. Be back with more on this. Interesting discussion right after this.